Welcome to 1 Minute to Midnight. I'm Wilfred Cunningham. This week, Russia announced that it would withdraw the bulk of its forces stationed in Syria. Relations between North Korea and the rest of the world continue to sour. The US affirmed that ISIS have committed acts of genocide, and an agreement between the EU and Turkey over the placement of refugees was reached. Of course, that's not the only thing that's been happening. In 2015, the Federation of American Scientists estimated there to be more than 15,700 nuclear warheads in the world, of which 4,000 are ready for immediate use. Henry D. Sokolski, Executive Director of the Non-Proliferation Policy Education Center, wrote a paper in 2014 that estimated the amount of nuclear material unaccounted for by US weapons programs alone was enough to create 1,000 nuclear bombs. An exchange of between 50 and 100 nuclear weapons would be enough to destroy society as we know it. But we're not talking about nuclear war, the resulting temperature drop, famine, and catastrophic loss of human life. The news of North Korea is yet to come. First, Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Monday that the bulk of the Russian military in Syria would withdraw. Only a day later, the first units began to leave the theatre in what many journalists have called a shock move. Russia's existing bases in Tartus and Hmyimim will continue to operate with the same number of staff. An estimated 4,000 Russian troops were in Syria at any one time, and there may remain 1,000 soldiers, aircraft and support units, as well as special forces. Russia began overt operations in Syria in September 2015, and its airstrikes have killed 4,500 people, including about 1,700 civilians, between that time and early March 2016, according to the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Despite high collateral damage, its airstrikes have also been highly effective against ISIS, suppressing them in numerous locations. The efficacy of Russian military hardware has brought it valuable weapons contracts. It signed a contract with Algeria to supply $7.5 billion worth of weaponry, including 14 Sukhoi air-to-air jets. Russia is also set to deliver the powerful Almaz-Antey S-300 PMU-1 surface-to-air missile system to Iran later this year, along with combat aircraft, and has a deal to deliver 5 S-400 air defense systems to India, and a rumoured set of MiG-35s to Egypt, possibly alongside missiles and other hardware. But Russia's intervention probably wasn't all about showcasing its armaments for sale. Most analysts seem to agree that Putin decided to deploy troops to support embattled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, or perhaps more correctly, to support a Russian-friendly regime. Now the rounds of negotiation have begun, and pro-government forces are set to hold out, Putin can claim he has helped to stabilize the situation and has refrained from conquering Syria for Assad. But Putin doesn't need Assad to take back Syria. He only needs Assad's regime, and perhaps not even the man himself, to be important enough in the peace process that a new Syria, possibly a federal one, remembers its connections and obligations to Russia. Russia has re-established itself in the Middle East, shown that it can conduct effective warfare without being sucked into an ongoing conflict, and it has created itself a powerful, or at least stable voice at the Syrian negotiating table. It now appears much more formidable in its actions in both the Crimea and Ukraine. North Korea was condemned by the United Nations Security Council after it launched 2 ballistic missiles with operational ranges of around 500 miles, or 800 kilometers, into the sea. The condemnation follows recent heightening of tensions, escalated by concerns over the progress of the isolated nation's nuclear weapons program, and its often provocative rhetoric. On December the 21st, 2015, North Korea tested a ballistic missile from a submarine. This test, conducted 3 weeks after a similar test failed, was reported as a success. On January the 6th, 2016, North Korea announced it conducted a 4th nuclear weapons test, claiming to have detonated a hydrogen bomb for the first time. Monitoring stations from the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization detected the seismic activity from the test, but the type of device tested remains unclear, although experts doubt it was a hydrogen bomb. On February the 7th, 2016, North Korea launched a long-range ballistic missile carrying what it said was an Earth observation satellite, in defiance of United Nations sanctions, barring it from using ballistic missile technology. On the 2nd of March, the UN Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 2270, which condemns the nuclear test and launch of early 2016 and demands that North Korea not conduct further tests and immediately suspend all activities related to its ballistic missile program. Resolution 2270 is the fifth set of UN sanctions since North Korea first tested an atomic device in 2006. On the 3rd of March, North Korea launched 6 short-range rockets into the sea. On the 18th of March, it launched 2 ballistic missiles. On March the 16th, 2 hours after American diplomat Bill Richardson met with 2 North Korean diplomats from the United Nations office to press for Otto Warmbuyer's release, Warmbuyer was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. Otto Warmbuyer is an American student who was visiting North Korea as a tourist and arrested on the 2nd of January for stealing a sign from a hotel. North Korea's detention and sentencing of Warmbuyer is seen by many as political leveraging, but the nation's fluctuations in its hostile stance and its defiant weapons programs may have more to do with internal politics. Most analysts seem to agree North Korea doesn't actually intend to attack anyone. Attacking would surely mean being destroyed themselves. The international concern is not one of victory. The international concern is whether and what if nuclear weapons might be used in times of hot-headedness, miscommunication, actions by rogue commanders, or just incompetence. On the 17th of March, John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, asserted that ISIS, or ISIL, or as he named them, Daesh, had committed acts of genocide against minority groups in Iraq and Syria.
My purpose in appearing before you today is to assert that in my judgment, Daesh is responsible for genocide against groups in areas under its control, including Yazidis, Christians, and Shia Muslims. Daesh is genocidal by self-proclamation, by ideology, and by actions, in what it says, what it believes, and what it does. Daesh is also responsible for crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing, directed at these same groups, and in some cases also against Sunni Muslims.
Although seemingly obvious to observers, the term genocide appears to be used here as a legal one. The Convention of the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide, adopted by United Nations Resolution 260 in December 1948, demands that states take action to stop genocides. The statement by Kerry may pave the way for US prosecution of individuals for genocide and war crimes, even though those acts were not on US soil or against US citizens.
There was a man, he's Down syndrome. He couldn't understand the situation to flee or to run away from the front line. When ISIS arrived, they beheaded him and take his photo and share it on social media, so we killed.
The list of atrocities conducted by ISIS is extensive and shameful. Yet with opposing forces outnumbering, outgunning, and now outmaneuvering them, their defeat seems inevitable. But it does not look close. Finally, and briefly, on the 20th of March, a European Union-Turkey agreement concerning the positioning and flow of refugees leaving the Middle East came into effect. Undocumented migrants arriving in Greece will now be sent to Turkey, and for every Syrian migrant sent back to Turkey, 1 Syrian already in Turkey will be resettled in the EU. However, the number is capped at 72,000. And priority will be given to those who have not already tried to illegally enter the EU. The European Union will grant €3 billion of aid to Turkey, and there will be some political concessions made to the Turkish government. The number cap may prevent the deal from being effective, and some have questioned the agreement's legality, a point acknowledged by German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Alongside other criticism of the deal, Amnesty International decried it as a historic blow to human rights. There are an estimated 2.7 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. In Greece, over half of the 72,000 cap are already there, awaiting processing. Of course, Europe, and beyond, have faced a greater migration crisis before, after the Second World War. And they dealt with that, eventually, and mostly. So, until next time, goodbye, and try to remain calm.